Hi folks, this is Mr. Davis again. We're going to continue on with our talk about the elements of music by discussing rhythm next. I really am not too fond of the way that your textbook describes the concept of rhythm. So I think that by going through this supplemental lecture, some questions that may have occurred to you as you were reading hopefully will be answered here. We're going to break this up into small segments just like we did with melody last video. So we're going to start here with discussing the idea of beats and pulse in music. So as your book says, rightfully so, every piece of music that you'll listen to has a steady beat. And this is usually what we will tap our foot to or our fingers to as we're listening to music. And this is very, very important because this is basically dividing our listening experience up into a type of grid. We're hearing events, but we're also in time dividing them into small, more manageable units. And this is the basic building block of what a rhythm is. And what you're actually tapping or tapping your foot to is indeed the pulse or the beat of the music. Now, I have a little grid here that I think might help visualize our idea of rhythm, specifically pulse here, and also how it relates to our concept of pitch that we just discussed in melody. So you'll see here I have just a standard piece of notebook paper, and what I've done is I've drawn a line right here on this margin to basically separate to create two different axes. We have our y-axis and our x-axis here. And I like to think of rhythm and pitch in this way, just because it's more visual and it's easier to grasp. So if we think of our x-axis here as being time or duration, and we think of our y-axis here as being pitch, we'll notice that going up, we would be then increasing in pitch or frequency. And if we're going along the x-axis here, we would be increasing in this direction with duration. You can think of each one of these lines as the pulse or the beat of the music. So if this was a piece of music we were listening to and I was tapping a steady beat, each one of these lines would correspond to a click. Now we can divide these lines up into different note durations. So if each one of these lines represents an individual beat in the piece of music, we have note values in music to represent these beats. And I've outlined those in the lecture outline for you, but for example, our main unit of counting is a circle, or we call this a whole note. And this whole note can then be broken up into smaller units. And we can divide a whole note into two, and we call these half notes. A whole note gets 4 beats, so 4 of these equals a whole note. A half note would equal 2 of these lines. And then we could divide this even further into 4 quarter notes. And we can think of a quarter note as being each individual line. You could even go further with this and divide quarter notes into eighth notes, which is basically then dividing each one of these lines in half. So I hope that this helps to describe what a pulse or a beat is in music. And now we're going to move next toward meter and measures.